Well, thanks everybody for coming out today. We'll just introduce ourselves really quick. I'm Mike Booty. I'm the education specialist with Red Mountain Park, and I normally give presentations to young students, elementary, middle school, and so I have to give them about 10 seconds to laugh at my last name. If y'all want to do that, you can. Okay, not as many people, so that's good. Out as the education specialist for Red Mountain Park, I actually started as a zipline guide back when the park opened in 2012. Just a quick survey. Who all has been to Red Mountain Park before? Raise your hands.
Woo!
Okay. Yeah, you can give yourselves an applause. That's good. If you haven't been, who has never heard of Red Mountain Park before today? Anybody? Oh, you guys got to get out. Okay. So, yeah, it's pretty close. We'll show you how close it is in just a second. But when we opened in 2012, we opened with a zip line. So I started as a zip line guide while I was actually getting my master's at the UAB School of Education over here. So when I got out, when I got my degree, my master's, they actually needed somebody to fill that void of bringing kids out and bringing guests out and sort of educating them about the park, about the history that we have that I'll kind of tell you guys a little bit about in just a second, but also about why it's important to restore the land. It's a really big urban park, you know, just like Railroad or Ruffner. It's just a few minutes from downtown Birmingham, and it has so many amazing opportunities for people to get out for free, to exercise, to zip line, to kind of conquer their fears, but also to volunteer and give back. So we'll kind of go into a little bit of that in just a second, but I'll let Rachel introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Rachel Arnson, if you're wondering how to pronounce my last name, and I'm the Natural Resources Specialist. I went to the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa, and then I got a lot of experience doing this outdoorsy stuff, working for the Parks and Recreation Department up in Ohio at an educational farm. And then when we actually brought goats to Red Mountain to eat our invasive plants, that's kind of how I slid in to help with that. And I've been there ever since, and I love it.
Okay.
And I do everything from grant writing to hacking down invasive plants to playing with bees, so it's a lot.
Yeah, so Rachel and I share an office, so we work together quite frequently on and just everything that we do at the park, education, natural resources management, archaeology, it all sort of ties together to preserve the past and try and also build something for the future citizens of Birmingham as well as the present ones. So I'll kind of tell you all a little bit about what this presentation is going to do. We want to kind of achieve two goals here, and at the end we'll bring these back, and if we didn't, then y'all have the permission to scald us for it. So what we want to do first is acquaint you with Red Mountain Park and how it's impacting public health in Birmingham and beyond. The second thing we want to do is we want to inspire new ideas and innovative projects that will spread our reach and measure our success, which I know is pretty loaded there, but I just want to do a quick survey again. How many of y'all have done internships or you're currently doing internships? Okay. How many of y'all need to do internships? Okay, so kind of a good split between the two. And how many of y'all regularly volunteer, or you want to do more volunteering, or you're looking for something to do, volunteer? Okay, so some of y'all too. So I think between those three different things, we've got pretty much the whole room. So that's what we're going to get to today, is kind of telling you a bit how Red Mountain Park can kind of help you achieve those things that you need to do or you want to do to give back. First of all, Red Mountain Park, if you've never been there, like I said, it's 15 minutes from downtown Birmingham. Easiest way is to go on Lakeshore Parkway, get off where that Walmart is, go about 3 miles down toward Highway 150, and you're right there. It's really close. A lot of people think that Red Mountain Park, and I thought this also when I first interviewed for a job out there, that it's up there where all the news stations are in Vulcan. How many of y'all thought that? That Red Mountain Park is just that one tiny little pyramid? No. Yeah, I know. It actually goes a lot longer than that. It's kind of crazy. So this is Red Mountain Park. This is the aerial view. I can't step beyond here. I'm sorry because of the camera. But you see where downtown Birmingham is, so you can guess where UAB is. So it's really, really close to here. It took us about 5 minutes to get here today. It was actually, with traffic, not that bad. So again, it's a free park to walk in. We have 1,500 acres, which is 40% larger than Central Park. And we have about 10,000 monthly visitors. And when I first started working for the park, nobody knew what it was. And then today I kind of wear a Red Mountain Park shirt, like Rachel's got on out, and people know what it is. They want to talk to us about it. So, but still, some people don't know about it. We are actually a nonprofit park, so a lot of people come out and think that we're a state park, like say Oak Mountain or something like that, or Ruffner, which is owned by the city. We're completely nonprofit. We're run just like any other nonprofit, where we accept sponsorships, name gift opportunities for the projects that we do in the park. We take investors, and they kind of keep us going. We don't have to worry about who's in City Hall, who's in the governor's mansion, who's in the White House, anything like that. We can sort of conceive a project and just build it based on the buy-in from the community, which is what's so fantastic about it. The really important thing to understand why Red Mountain Park is there is because we have this amazing history out here. In 2007, U.S. Steel actually donated the land at a really reduced rate. It was the site of all of this mining that used to go on out there, all this red ore mining, Red Mountain. Did anybody know that before, by the way? Anybody? Yeah, some of y'all did. So yeah, Red Mountain Park is because of the red ore that's there, and when you come home, your shoes are going to be stained in red, red dust from all the hematite. So we have all of these amazing ruins out there. That's actually a hoist house. This is what it looked like in 1917 when it was built by the Woodward Iron Company. If y'all know Rick Woodfield, you know about that? Built by the same person. Okay, he owned the Woodward Iron Company. So that's something that you can walk to out there, and we have just amazing ruins that you can kind of walk up, and it's really amazing because I grew up here in Birmingham, and I never knew all of this stuff was out here because when U.S. Steel closed all this land down in the late 60s, it was just all totally, they allowed it to kind of grow. When they did not actually see this when they came out to build the trails for the park, they had to mow down about 200 feet of privet and kudzu to get to it. So it was a really amazing discovery, and we're continuing to find things like that out there as we clear the trails and we cut down the privet and the kudzu and all that. So amazing history that needs to be told and communicated to people out there that we're trying to do. This is a picture from an 1888 copy of Harpers Magazine. We have all this surface mining out there. It's really, Red Mountain is very interesting because it's like, essentially one big ridge. And then on both sides of the ridge, you have two valleys. On one side of the valley, you have where all the mining took place. And then on the other side of the valley, you sort of have where all the company offices were, where the miners lived, and all that. So Birmingham, as you go out toward Red Mountain Park, really takes on that shape. So it kind of looks like that today. What's so cool about the park is that most of it is actually framed by an old railroad bed called the Birmingham Mineral Railroad. Some of you, as you drive around Birmingham, may see these brown signs on the side of the road that say L&N, BMRR. Have any of y'all seen those signs on the side of the road? Okay, now that I've told you about it, you probably will actually. But so that they're trying to map out the route. It was about a 150-mile railroad route that would service the iron mines, the coal mines, as well as the limestone quarry, and to service eventually the steel mills, okay, like Inslee and Fairfield, but also like Sloss Furnace, where they would make iron. So, but that's where Red Mountain Park is. Again, I can't break this, but you see the ridge right there in the middle where all the iron workings are, where all the that's actually most of our trail right now. Okay, so it's a big old flat trail formed by old railroad beds. You can see all the houses down there in the valley. That's where all the miners lived. That's where all of the, if you worked for the mine, you got free housing, you got free medical care, free schooling for your kids. It's just you had to work, okay? It was like quite an interesting system that was going on there in the early 1900s when all this was happening. But most of the communities that are on the north side of Red Mountain Park sprung up out of all of this mining that was going on there. A lot of miners who worked in the mines lived in places that are now Tarpley City, West Goldwire, Winona, Ishkuta, and then going further out, a lot of the people who worked in the steel mills lived in places like Midfield and Fairfield and Inslee and all that. So all of this is kind of coming to why we're here at the School of Public Health today. We have an amazing connection with a lot of over-the-mountain communities, and places like Mountain Brook and Homewood and Birmingham. But a lot of the communities that we're actually missing are these areas on the north side of the mountain. We're trying to address these by actually building an entrance that borders them, that's close to them. But really, to get to Red Mountain Park, if you lived in one of these communities, There's busy highways, there's not a lot of public transportation, it's just kind of a hot mess really. So that's one of the things that we're trying to service. Since all of these communities grew out of the mountain, we're trying to actually open it back up to them, you know. So that's one of the things we're doing. Out of the park, we call it an urban signature park because we want sort of the model that we have here at the park to kind of pour out into other urban parks that reclaim a lot of former industrial land. So we're trying to take on no debt while generating revenue. As I said, when we opened the park back in 2012, we opened with a zip line, which immediately allowed us to start generating revenue. However, we didn't charge people for admission, and we will continue to not do that in the future because we want to build relationships with the community. We want people to come out there and not be deterred by an entry fee. So again, we're not trying to rely on any kind of federal funding, any kind of state or city funding, and we're really trying to build it based on the community. And I know that that sounds like a loaded term, it may be touchy-feely, yeah, right, but I'll show you in just a couple of minutes how we're doing that. Some of the generating revenue activities we have are like the Vulcan Materials Zip Trip. Vulcan Materials, you're actually going to see you know, company names before all this because they come out and they put their name on it because they want to support the park. You know, we don't have to get any money from the government to do it. We have the Hugh Call Adventure Tower and Team Forging, which I should have put Susan Mott Webb Team Forging. I actually noticed Susan Mott Webb's name on a building out here too. So we have all these different activities that generate revenue that allow the park to operate and pay our salaries, which is nice. We also have things like the Schaefer Ice Center Seg Tours. A lot of people, when we started up the Seg Tours, kind of complained about, like, why am I coming out to a park to get exercise and I see people riding around on Segways? If you've never been on a Segway, it's actually quite a lot of exercise. But it still allows people who don't want to walk like 5 miles to kind of see the park a little quickly. So we also have a 1,000-foot mega zip. We've teamed up with the Birmingham Zoo to put in the Soaring Safari zip line. And we also have summer camps and education programs, which are, of course, near and dear to my heart, because I try to get students out there who otherwise would not be out in the parks exercising and exploring. That's really my primary focus of my job. I want to tell you a little bit about how we're actually impacting public health, how we're really trying to have an influence in the community with what we're doing out at the park. We were able to find, based on previous grants that we had written, a 2011 survey of 750 random residents done by the Jefferson County Department of Health. I don't know if there are more recent statistics out there public than this, because we looked and we could not find them. I called over and they ended up forwarding me to somebody at the Children's Hospital for some reason. So I don't know if any of y'all have done more recent survey gathering and more inclusive survey gathering than the ones we were able to find. But nevertheless, the park opened in 2012, so we started to build things based on survey data such as this. 31.4% of participants were overweight, 31.9% were obese, and then 66.6% had participated in physical activity the previous month. So obviously there are gaps that we can fill in getting people out there to do things. The things that we offer people to do, we try to really target every single age group, every single demographic, is we try to offer unique programming for all ages. Again, we have 15 miles of trails out there and growing. We've actually been approved to build as much as 17 miles of trails at the moment. I mean, really, like for a 1,500-acre park that's 5 miles from end to end, we're really packing it tight with trails that are diverse, meaning, you know, they're level, they're hilly, whatever you want to do. We have people come out there training to hike on the Appalachian Trail, and multi-use. So, you know, again, you can bike. One long trail out there, as I said, that's a former railroad bed. You can walk on with strollers. You can just have like a nice leisurely walk, you know, and so you can pretty much, you know, do whatever out there. And the other way that we're also impacting public health is we're really trying to work with community partners and volunteers. We're here today because the UAB School of Public Health invited us, and we've had interns come out before and collect survey data at the park and just try and kind of tap that. So other things that we offer in the park, I showed you some of the adventures. Those are revenue generating, so you have to come out and pay for those. But if you don't want to come out and spend any, you can come out. We have a 6-acre dog park out there that's right near the entrance, so it's not much of a walk if you just want to come out for a couple hours. We have plenty of picnic tables. We have, again, there's pictures of the trails, biking, and we also have guided hikes. So I do a lot of guided hikes out at the park. I started out doing them with students, but every Saturday I offer them for the general public at 11 a.m. You just have to call to reserve first, okay? So, because I may not be there if nobody calls ahead of time. So, but we try to get people out there just walking around, giving them things to do. We also have unique destinations in the park. So a lot of times you may go to a park and walk on a trail for 6 miles and end up back at your car. We try to give you missions to do at the park, like go to tree houses that you don't have to pay to go on. No harnesses are required. You just kind of have to walk out there. And a lot of times it's kind of nerve-wracking because that's a tree that's about 50 feet up in the air. People get nervous about walking across a wonky, swinging bridge, Indiana Jones style, and then standing on a tree house. But they give you amazing views. So, furthermore, we also try to include people who have, accessibility, mobility issues. We have an inclusive zip tour. We've taken people out there before who are paraplegic, get them out of the chair, put them into a hang gliding harness, and it's pretty easy. We just kind of hoist them up and attach them to the zip lines, and they go just like anybody else. We also have 2 off-road wheelchairs for rent that don't cost you anything to rent, of course, if you want to take them out, because why should you have to pay for what everybody else gets to do for free? So we have those as well. Another thing that Rachel was mentioning earlier that we do is we try to get a lot of grants at the park to kind of do things that our normal operations budget do not allow for. So one thing that I've always kind of had a problem with is getting students from underserved areas, Title I schools out to the park. And so this past year we actually we secured about $30,000 in grants to bring students from these underserved areas out to the park. And this is actually from a pilot program that we had last April. These are students from Wylam K through 8 out in Inslee. And a lot of these kids actually had connections. A lot of their grandparents actually worked in the steel mills when they were open out there. So it was really cool to kind of bring them out here, take them to some of the mines, show them where all the ironwork came from, and do it at no cost to them at all. Like our staff actually piloted the program. We paid for the whole thing just to show that it could be done and that it could be done well. So. Another thing we're really excited about this year is we got a $10,000 grant from Butler Snow, a lawyer firm, thank you, here in Birmingham. We're going to build a sensory trail for kids with autism, also anybody who's vision or hearing impaired, wheelchair users out there. We had some people come out from the Lakeshore Foundation yesterday, get on the Nomad wheelchair, and sort of consult us a little bit on what's ADA and what's not. It's like, if you want to call yourself accessible, you have to really go through like a lot of hoops, but that's important because you want to make sure that you're opening it up to everyone. So we're going to be opening that in November. It's exciting. What I'm going to do right now, actually, is I'm going to hand this over to Rachel. Hopefully I've acquainted you with the park a little bit. But what Rachel's going to do now is talk about how we're kind of continuing to impact the park and build more trails and get more people out there. And I'm going to hand it over to you. Yes,
I want
ma'am.
you to tell them about Lloyd Nolan.
Oh, Lloyd Nolan. So y'all are all public health folks. What's really interesting about the land where we are is that you saw that picture earlier, that 1940s survey of what the mines looked like back then. Lloyd Nolan, I don't know if you guys remember the Lloyd Nolan Hospital. He was actually brought in by U.S. Steel back in the early 1900s to improve sanitation and essentially introduce a public health program because, quite honestly, the miners were dying. They were having all these horrible diseases going on, cholera, yellow fever, all this stuff that was essentially going on, everywhere else where there were these big civic construction projects. So they brought in Lloyd Nolan to do that. So when you come out to the park on one of my hikes, we'll take you to places like the bathhouse, which was built in the 1920s. Before that, the miners had pretty much no way of really cleaning themselves at the end of the day that didn't involve getting into a tub of already filthy water. So, so they really improved all this stuff. I mean, U.S. Steel really revolutionized the way that industrial sanitation can kind of be done. So, does that satisfy your question?
Good
okay,
job.
thank you very much.
I'll slide on in. Okay, so this slide talks a little bit about what I do, restoration work. So if you see the cute baby goats playing, we use them to eradicate invasive plants in a pretty revolutionary and fun way. We had up to 400 goats on the mountain for almost a year, and they ate so much kudzu. They browsed over 200 acres of kudzu and Chinese privet, and if you don't know what Chinese privet is, it's the bane of my existence, and it's that green bush that you see everywhere if you're along the highway. It's that green bush that you just see constantly. And we need to remove these invasive plants because they provide very poor habitat for wildlife. So we restore, there's some deer out in our meadow area, which is in the process of restoration. We also plant trees. When we remove these invasive plants, something needs to go where they were. So we plant native trees. We work with the Birmingham Botanical Gardens on that. And we also have recently started keeping bees. So we've actually grown our hives to 12, which is an enormous amount of bees. Last year, we only had around 6 or 7. We harvested 300 pounds of honey, which is a lot of honey. And we sell it if you ever want to pick some up. And that actually helps not only Red Mountain Park, but bees travel for miles and miles. So it helps all of the surrounding areas have better environments. All right, so nature and health. What do butterflies have to do with public health? Well, we've actually, I've been looking at a lot of studies, and there have been so many studies that have come out lately that say that mental health improves when you spend time in nature. Just 15 minutes in a green space can drastically improve your health. And it's been found that it lowers symptoms of stress, depression, dementia, and ADHD. And actually, I'm going to bring this up later, but we actually had some public health interns come out to the park and take some survey data. And this was 2 years ago. And one of the questions they asked was, they asked this question to over 500 people. They said, have you experienced a noticeable improvement in your mental health? And 79% of people said yes. So that's pretty strong evidence for that. We like to call the park the lungs of Birmingham because we are so close to downtown, which is located in this kind of smoggy valley, and having this many 1,500 acres of trees and green space is very beneficial to the community as a whole. And also all the water that goes through the park. Everything that trickles through the park ends up in either the Cahaba or the Warrior watersheds, which are very important to our drinking water and everything. So everything we do at the park to improve the stream quality eventually trickles down to the drinking water. How are we doing all this? Through you. Couldn't resist. So here's our model for volunteer park development. We have an extremely small staff. So we have 1,500 acres of park, many more acres than people. So we have to rely on volunteers, interns, and partners to make the kind of progress that we have made. So we bring volunteers out to invest sweat equity, build a park for minimal cost, and avoid debt and admission. And here's some of our volunteers from the Altamont School. They helped destroy some privet for me and clear a stream area. So we have volunteers of all ages, all groups, bankers to school children, it doesn't matter. In 2016, we had over 2,000 volunteers, and they have continued to build Red Mountain Park. And here's a couple of examples of volunteer activities that are commonly done. So we have trail building. This is a member, I believe she's from BBVA, the banking company, and she's on top of a mountain building a trail, which is pretty awesome. We also have rubbish removal. Red Mountain Park, after the mining companies left in the late 60s, kind of was just abandoned and became a dumping ground. So we found all sorts of interesting trash out there, from thousands of tires, as you can see here, to eye wash stands, mattresses, anything that you can think of, we've probably found it out there. And it's a gradual process to clean it all up. So volunteers are enormously helpful in doing that. And forest restoration, what I spend a lot of my time doing. So you can imagine as one person chopping down. Over 700 of our acres are affected by plants like privet and kudzu. So you can imagine the kind of progress I'm making as one person, slowly chopping it down by myself. But bringing out a volunteer group can make a very clear and immediate difference in how easy my life is, and also in the health of the forest. So we're going to show you a cool video of how one group of volunteers made a difference in just one day. One day they cleared an acre of privet, and where this outdoor education classroom is, that was all covered in privet. Now it's clear we can do something with the land. We build an outdoor education classroom on it. It's for, if people want to come out in the park to use it to do yoga or whatever, they can. They're free to do so. And Mike can take his field trips out there, so it's a really great asset to the park. And here's one of our programs out at that classroom. So one of our segments of volunteers that we use a lot are Eagle Scout projects. So if you're a Boy Scout, basically to graduate from being a Boy Scout, you have to complete and become an Eagle Scout. You have to complete a big volunteer project, and they have to provide all of the funds and all of the work, and we're supposed to not have to do anything, just let them loose. So they built a fitness station, and we're planning on putting some more in. That's another great part of integrating public health into our trails. If you're out for a leisurely hike, maybe you're inspired to do a couple pull-ups, We also have everyone's like, yeah, right. Here's the hammock station that we have. We have 2 of those, and then we have some huge oversized chairs, Vulcan's chairs, and they're up on top of mine number 10, and we're building a bunch of oversized furniture out there. And you know what? A lot of people that would not take hikes hike out there so they can get an Instagram photo. So we are doing the good work with these. And here's a primitive campsite. Right now we only allow youth groups to camp out at the park, but that's another way that we work with the community. So oftentimes the Boy Scouts will be able to camp overnight, and then when they wake up in the morning, we have tools waiting for them. They help cut some privet down. So it's a fun time for them. Interns. So this was my intern last summer, Glenn, who was awesome and helped me restore a bunch of our streams and vernal ponds, which are temporary ponds. We have had interns in natural resources, public relations, and philanthropy. And we've actually had interns from you guys, public health. So you can see in this picture, they presented to us this survey, which I have in my hands. They just surveyed people on the trails, asked them about demographic information, how it's affected their physical and mental health, and it was such valuable data for us to have in a very real way, because when we do apply for grants and things like that, they want those statistics, and if we don't have them, we have a less strong of an application. So we always say, you don't know you need it till you need it. So having interns that can collect that kind of data for us is just so important. So y'all, anyone wants to come out and do it again? That would be fantastic. Just an idea. Inspiring change. Support your park. So there's a lot of ways to support the park, as we've discussed: interning, volunteering, donating. I know y'all are poor college students, so we don't expect that from you yet. Coming out and taking an adventure, just telling your friends about it. If you can't do anything, just spread the word. And this presentation has hopefully acquainted you with Red Mountain Park and how it is impacting public health in Birmingham and beyond. inspired new ideas and innovative projects that will spread our reach and measure our success.
And
And then really quick,
if it hasn't done that, yeah, we'll open it up to questions in just a minute. You guys can get mad at us. But really quick, though, we wanted to say we just got approved by the UAB Benevolent Fund. Has anybody heard of the Benevolent Fund before? Some of y'all have, some of you have not. Benevolent Fund basically allows you, if you're a UAB employee, I know we have some in this room, to essentially donate just a little bit of your income every couple weeks to a designated agency, and you can do up to 3 agencies. So we have Red Mountain Park just got approved to be one of those.
well, if you want to work on a specific project, we do have a volunteer manager. We have one person that's just dedicated to volunteers. That tells you how many volunteers we have. And so she'll have different days. Like if you want to come out and cut privet, she can let you know like what days those are going to be. I think it's the first Saturday of every month. We have a volunteer day, so you can just know first Saturday of every month you can come out to Red Mountain Park. And then if you want to get a little bit more involved, I've had some dedicated volunteers, like volunteers that will just come out whenever their schedule allows, and they'll help me like on a specific project. So we're extremely flexible in that way. We're not going to be like, you have to be here Tuesday at 2 every time. We're willing to work with you if as your schedule allows.
So is your contact information like on the website or anything?
Yes, it is, and I have a business card
Okay.
over there. Yep.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I was also going to say, even if it's just 1 or 2 people, sometimes volunteers come out in armies. It's like a sorority or fraternity or something like that. The video that didn't work earlier showed a bunch of University of Connecticut volunteers who actually came down. You know, apparently it's really cold up there in January. So they came down here and cleared out all this land where we built the outdoor classroom. But I have had volunteers call me up in the past who are like, I want to do some education volunteerism out at the park, and I've had them come out and help me, you know, herd around about 300 fifth graders, and they did excellent, so it was fantastic. So there's always something. If you call up, we'll find something for you to do if you need hours.